great panel here. I'm going to introduce them just by their name and company and then give each of them a little bit of time to explain who they are and how they are going to help us today. So first we have Donna Miller. She's president and founder of C3 Workplace. We have Lorena Sargent, president of LW&H Business Solutions. And then we have our very own Karen Donaway, director of marketing at SKC & Co. CPAs. So Donna, why don't we start with you with a brief intro?
Awesome. Good morning and delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So here at C3 Workplace for over 25 years, I've been helping business owners create more profitable companies and teams that run without them involved in the day-to-day, which is something that I have been able to do for myself. And we do that in a number of different ways, which I'll talk about throughout the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Lorena, on to you.
Perfect. Morning, everyone. I'm Lorena Sargent, president of LW&H Business Solutions, and we are all about automating your workflows to create efficiencies and really help you generate better, efficient processes around marketing, finance, and all the other areas that are really always connected and people sometimes forget should be talking to each other. So if you have any questions on how to actually document that or the ugly systems that go along with it that are a love-hate relationship, that's what we're here to do, to make them so that you actually love them. So.
Terrific. Karen, on to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Donaway, Director of Marketing at SKC. It is a little strange for me to be on this side of the panel. I'm usually in the background making things move along, but super happy to be here today talking about one of my favorite topics, which is marketing and business development, especially now in this environment and at this time of the year, how important it is. I handle the communications for the firm and the marketing endeavors, as well as manage the back end of the business development.
Great. Thank you, ladies. So without further ado, let's jump into our first topic, which is business development and marketing. We've all heard the maxim that if you don't grow, you die, and we certainly need to have sales and continued pipelines of sales and business development to generate enough energy to move our company to the next level. So we can't increase profitability and really grow to that next level simply by cutting expenses. We really have to plump up that top line. And so if we're in this challenging year of 2020, it's ever more important now to overcome some of the dips and in some cases closed business situations that we've had so far this year. So we're going to prompt you guys with a couple polls throughout the hour just to keep you engaged and get a sense of who we have on the call and a pulse from everybody. So Brittany, if you can put up the first poll for everybody. So have you taken your foot off the gas this year when it comes to business development and marketing? 2020 was a big distraction year for a lot of people, but and we had to kind of pivot and focus on the pandemic and being able to work virtually. But how many of you were able to continue with that business development and that marketing trajectory versus sort of panic mode? So we'll leave it open a couple seconds more. And then Brittany, you can share the results with everybody. All right, good. So the majority of the people have not taken their foot off the gas, which is good. Some people, I would have imagined more would have been in the somewhat category, but all right, good to know. So Donna, let's dig into some of the knowledge on the panel. Let's start with you, Donna. Clearly 2020 has been unique. And as the owner and driving force behind C3, what are you advising your clients, or maybe even doing yourself as the owner, that's different this year than in past years when it comes to business development and marketing?
Thank you, Sarah. I think that having been on, many different panels and different discussions, one thing that I believe is true about 2020 is that everything is different, but everything is the same. I think the same fundamental principles that worked in the past will continue to work in 2020 and beyond. And I think that when I'm working with my clients on building those profitable companies and teams, in 2020, what I have had many, many discussions about, not only with my clients, but myself as well. Again, doing for myself what I tell other people to do. It really has to be about focusing on that which will bring you the best results. This can't be a spray and pray year. This has to be a year that you take a scalpel to your marketing and business development strategy, and you get really clear on what will bring you the best results. And I think for most, if not all, professional service companies, and I know we'll touch on this as we go out throughout the conversation, it has to be about centers of influence and referrals. We have to nurture those relationships. That's a long game strategy that really pays off. I know it's what SKC does. I know it's what Lorena does. So I think that there isn't too much different. I just think it's more important to be really clear on that which will drive results, and I believe those are centers of influence. The other thing that we've done as a company, and I've talked to many of my clients about, and I'll talk about this more throughout the panel, is this has been the year to get your whole team selling. And in a professional service firm, that really means making sure that all your people on the front line, and truthfully, I'm no longer on the front line. So my job is to make sure that everyone who is on my front line knows how to identify an opportunity. And that comes in little clues and little breadcrumbs that people are leaving during a conversation. But it's my job to empower them with the right open-ended questions to dig a little deeper into that and see, is there an opportunity for C3, or is there an opportunity for C3 to refer one of our centers of influence, thus working both strategies at the same time. So for me, it's always about working smarter, not harder, and making sure wherever you can that what you're doing is supporting and leveraging the other activities that you're doing. That to me is the secret sauce of working smarter, not harder. I hope that answers the question.
Definitely, it does, and I love that all hands on deck mentality of making sure everyone on the team is doing their share of, whether it's excellent client service to bring in more referrals and more business. It's a full team effort. I love that.
Absolutely.
So Karen, I know at SKC we always talk about being out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself to be, in a different position that maybe makes you a little uncomfortable. What are you seeing with our team internally, or even with the centers of influence and the different groups that you run, as far as people doing behaviors or activities that are different than what they normally would do?
So yes, thanks for that, Sarah. What I have seen first and foremost is that the relationships are becoming very personal. What I've seen is that people start their conversations now with, how are you? How's your family doing? I mean, really getting down in a very heartfelt way to, how is this person that you're engaging with feeling? Because you just never know right now. That's not typically something that we had seen in the past. And, before diving into any type of sales at all, it's always about the person now. Something else that I have seen too is that there is more opportunity to reach people. They're more available. So I see business owners and also people in the business development space being able to just reach out by a phone call, unplanned, God forbid. That's just not something that was done before. Typically, even if it was just, to scheduling a 5-minute call to check in, hey, did you get my proposal? Or you have any questions on something? Now it's just people are much more receptive and you can speak to them more immediately. In terms of getting out of their comfort zone, for sure, hands down, I think that this virtual environment has allowed people to branch out into what we'd call public speaking, on platforms such as Zoom and others, getting out there in front of crowds of people, being able to speak to them, not having 200 people sitting in front of you, but yet reaching 200 people. A lot of times, introverts and, people who shy away from that just never would think to do that. So lots of that happening. Webinars are being developed. People are getting information out that way, building their thought leadership, video series. Again, really capitalizing on the virtual environment and allowing you to reach a much broader audience than you ever would have been able to before. I think too, what I've seen is companies offering free services, whether it be, a 30-minute consultation, or if it's a product, a sampling of a product, and not in a salesy way at all, really from a philanthropic position. And companies are coming together and really supporting each other now through this. And they're really trying to help each other. And oftentimes those free consultations, the 30 minutes together, just a brainstorming session leads to new business, but coming from a very different place, I believe.
Yeah, we've talked on past office hours about humanity and how much more prevalent it seems to be just because there's such a need for it this year. Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Lorena, let's talk a little bit about innovation. And, certainly that's the backbone of companies being able to thrive and grow. 2020 has been challenging. And what can we do as far as innovating to be able to make business development and marketing a continued focus of our business?
So thank you again for being here. And one of the things that, folks don't realize is how quickly we all embraced technology during all of this. Everyone was, very weary of how is this all going to work if now I can't be in person and be networking. And one of the things we've realized is that Zoom was a wonderful platform. Granted, we have our little hiccups, and SNL has made a really great show of that for us, but we were able to embrace technology and start doing virtual networking. We're able to do things that we weren't doing before just because we didn't know that we could, and we were intimidated by technology. But if we start to embrace those systems, we're able to pivot faster, we're able to launch faster, and we're able to track some of those endeavors that we're actually doing in much better ways that we were doing before. And one of the things that, I loved about the poll that you just did is 55% of the group here today was actually doing more with their money, more with their time for business development. But one of the key things that Donna mentioned is you want to use not just yourself, but your team and your center's influence to really grow your network and to really be almost like your extension of your sales team. So in order to do that, you want to make sure you're tracking who you're talking to, who are you referring to what. You want to have metrics for what kind of things you're actually doing to see if it's actually going to pay off long run. You don't want to be spending a lot of time in one networking group only to find out you are getting absolutely no leads from that group when there was this other group that you weren't really dedicating a lot of time, but they were giving you most of your leads and your referrals. So you really want to be able to take the investments and endeavors that you're doing and track them and create some metrics and baselines so that you can measure up from the year, quarter to quarter. And right now it's really day to day to see what's actually working and it's not working, able to really build that.
Great. As an accountant, I love measuring things and numbers. So I'm so happy you brought that in.
All
so
about the metrics.
Thanks so much. So let's shift gears a little bit to social media and sort of all things virtual. And we touched about it sort of in the first round of questions where really nobody's having in-person networking events or meetings and things like that, we kind of have to reinvent some old behaviors that we knew. So we do have another quick poll to throw up about virtual networking. And it's basically, do you feel virtual networking events are as beneficial as in-person events? Easy yes or no. And everybody's different, right? So I'm interested in seeing what the results are for this one. Brittany, you want to share the results? Okay, a lot of people still like that in person. And you know what, that's not surprising because I think after all we've sort of gone through, we're a little craving the human-to-human contact. So I wouldn't expect anything different than those results. So Karen, let's talk about this virtual situation. Social media campaigns, I feel, have sort of exploded, And at SKC, we had an outside speaker yesterday talking all about LinkedIn and how sort of everyone is now vying for people's screen time. It's interesting to see, but, something as basic as consistent postings or newsletters all the way to those full-fledged video campaigns. So these things that we're doing, like Lorena said, need to be evaluated and measured in order to determine effectiveness. So how can business owners who may not be on the front lines of business development understand the impact and the return on investments of all these various campaigns and endeavors through social media to understand what's working and what isn't, and how often should we be getting these metrics back?
Well, that's a great question, and I think every business owner who is either themselves working on social media campaigns or their business itself is working on them really needs to have a handle on the performance of them to know, the worth of what they're doing. Even social media campaigns, video campaigns, any of that is still an investment in time, energy, and money on a business owner's behalf. So it's important to first and foremost start with an objective in mind. I think oftentimes people feel compelled, Sarah, like you just mentioned, to get content out there, make sure that you're present online, but you have to know why you're doing it, because then you have in your mind what would success look like to you if you put this campaign out. Without identifying the objective, you're kind of just throwing time, energy, resources into the wind. So I think once the objective is established, and it could be something as simple as I want to increase brand awareness, or I want to increase my customer or client engagement. Having that said as an objective, when you put your campaign out there, you quickly start to measure the results. And any social media platform that you're working with, and any email platform, Constant Contact, whatever, gives you tons and tons of metrics on the activity that you're putting out there. So I think it's really important to identify your objective, get the campaign out there quickly, and then start immediately measuring the results. You can always fine-tune or tweak which way that campaign is going based on how you see the results, but you need to know them immediately in order to be able to adapt your campaign. Sometimes you're going to see it is not doing anything of what you wanted it to do, and you have to be willing to scrap that too. But without knowing your metrics immediately, you were not able to adapt in that way. I think too that social media campaigns put out tons and tons of metrics for you. At SKC, what we just started to do was to take those metrics and use another program, an Excel-based program, to analyze those metrics and see, are you really getting the results that you think that you are? It's above and beyond what social media platforms put out for you. And the bottom line is to watching your sales numbers. I mean, making sure that your marketing efforts, all the campaigns that you're doing, your video campaigns, are filtering down to that bottom line. Are you seeing your closed business increase? Are you seeing your sales funnel increase? Always watching all of those components and making sure that you stay on target.
Yeah, I love the idea of objectives, right? We have to set the objectives of the campaign before we start the campaign so we actually know what we're measuring against. Otherwise, it's seemingly meaningless when we look at the results, no matter what they are.
No matter how good you think that idea is,
that's right.
You just don't know.
Exactly, keeping us honest.
Yes.
Great. So Lorena, I know that you host and organize a lot of virtual events in this environment, and we saw from the poll how many of our participants really prefer the in-person events. Unfortunately, we are sort of still stuck in the virtual platform. What advice or tips can you give for organizing these events and setting them up to be the most successful? And then also, what feedback have you gotten from the many different participants that have participated in the various programs?
So it's It's definitely not something we're going to get rid of anytime soon, sadly. I mean, I wish we were back in person. If anybody knows me, they know that kid I live for that person to person energy. But at the same time, my kids joke that you give me a spotlight, you give me a microphone, I'd probably talk for hours. So the Zoom has been really good with that. With that said, virtual events, they have a different perspective. I don't necessarily think it's fair to compare that one is better than the other. I think virtual events are going to be here to stay for a very long time. I think we're actually going to get rid of them. I think there are people were wanting to network at a particular events at a certain time that were just not able to because there are still parents and there's still younger kids at home that they had to put on the bus, and therefore they were missing out on some of these networking events that now they're able to participate because they're able to just log on and be part of that interaction. So I think you just gotta compare the pros and cons of both of those things. And when you guys were talking about the metrics and knowing what your goals are, I think that's key, because one of the things that you want to do when you're attending some of these networking events and or starting the networking events is, what is the goal? Is the goal really to just give people an opportunity to just chit chat and really have a little bit more of a relaxed setting? Then you want to make sure you set up the event with that in mind. If the goal is to really give people the opportunity to meet as many people as possible in a very quick fashion, then you want to make sure you set up the event so that it runs in that particular way. And making sure that the expectation meets what you're actually delivering. So you don't want to set up an event and have people know that it's a networking event and then only give them like 3 or 4 people in a room when they were expecting to meet 10. And at the same time, you don't want to put 10 people in a room when they were expecting to have a little bit more of that one-to-one like feeling when you're doing a network event. So knowing what you're going into and what you're going to be delivering on. The other thing is, when you're setting these events, it's extremely important to know your audience. So you want to make sure you're asking the right questions upon the registration. Are you at what type of industry, so that you can filter and curate the rooms based on industry? Are you asking specific questions or specific goals in mind? Maybe you want to put goal-oriented folks together to have more robust conversations. So I think it's important to really create the event with some of the metrics that you want to have, so that you can actually set it up and reach the audience and really have the most successful. And at the end of the day, we're only going to do business with people we know and trust. And the only way to do that is to actually talk to people and to know that. And in-person events are fantastic. Virtual events allow you to get that one-to-one connection or that FaceTime that might otherwise be a little bit more difficult to get. So I think they're not going to disappear even after this. I think they're just going to be a blend of the two.
Gotcha. Well, we figured virtual would be around for a lot longer, and there's still people comfortable with that. And I think it's, to your point here, for a much longer runway than we may think, for sure.
Yeah, especially with social media and the links that they have now, and you can stream and hit so many more people than you were able to before. So,
and what we don't talk about is it gives people actually more time, because we're not doing the commute to different events, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So you
Absolutely.
might be able to
I'm up in Sparta. To get down to Morris County, sometimes I leave at 5:30 in the morning to get to Business Connections for 7 a.m. on a snowy day. Now I don't have to just come downstairs. So it's definitely wild.
That's going to be the hardest part for people to sacrifice, is having to go back to a commute, I think.
That's right. The gas money that we're saving. I mean, come on.
So Donna, one of the primary funnels, I guess, for referrals at SKC is our existing client relationships and out of this world client service. And so when we talk about this virtual world, how do you and your team work on continuing to develop those deep relationships with clients, sustaining that trust, and then also doing what we at SKC sort of call the ask of, do you know anyone who could use our services, or can we help anybody in your circle type thing? How does that all translate in this new virtual world?
Great question. And I have to reiterate some of what's already been said. It starts with objectives and expectations. Karen talked about having a plan with an objective. Lorena talked about having an event with expectations. So when I seek to develop referral sources or centers of influence, the first thing I do, and I always say this, if something's in your head, it's an idea. If you commit it to paper, it becomes a plan, and you're much more likely to execute on it. So the first thing we do, and I encourage my clients to do, my consulting clients that I work with, is create a written plan. So C3 stands for Connect, Collaborate, Community. I wholeheartedly pursue and believe that collaboration is the way we all get to where we're trying to get to much quicker. I also believe, and Karen talked about this is a very unique time for many of us to present our thought leadership to a much wider audience because of Zoom. We don't have geographic barriers anymore. As a company who provides virtual assistance both administratively and bookkeeping, my geographic boundaries are down, and the people who used to think that they couldn't work with someone remotely, those barriers are gone. So when I am looking to collaborate with someone and to build a strategic partnership, I start out by documenting who am I, what do I bring to the table, what am I looking for in that strategic partner, and maybe it's somebody I'm already working with, but it talks about documenting the win-win-win. Who am I, who am they, who are they, and how does that create massive value for our shared target market? So we're doing that today. We're bringing a few people together and we're sharing multiple perspectives of the same topic that no one of us individually could deliver to this audience. So centers of influence and driving referral, again, nothing has changed and everything has changed. It's about delivering value. So how do you deliver value? And then how do you, and from a marketing perspective, how do you then cross-purpose that? So when I am looking to develop centers of influence, I'm looking for ways to collaborate. I'm documenting how it's a win-win-win, but the way I really bring massive value to the table, and I think the reason many people take me up on my requests, is because I create like a mini marketing plan. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my reach. Here's what I need you to do, because if they're not going to do their part, then it's really not a great collaboration. So I think that showing up in this collaborative spirit, bringing combined thought leadership to the table, has a magnetic pull. I have a talk that I do on influence. Influence has you in the room when you're not even there, and influence creates a pull. So that's what we're trying to do, because the truth is, you actually can't sell to anyone. You can only accelerate the process. So that's our job as business development people and marketing people, is to do what we can to accelerate the process. And in the end, as far as asking for the referral, first of all, I think we're all doing a lot more LinkedIn. I don't know about anyone else, but the number of invitations that I get on a daily basis is like, I used to screen them. Do I screen them? Don't I screen them? That's a whole other webinar. But I think LinkedIn is a great resource. But it can't just be about the connections. It has to be about the right connections. It has to be about taking the conversation offline. But again, in the spirit of documentation, if I have a center of influence that I'm working with and I want them to introduce me to someone, first of all, this is pure Sandler. I don't suppose you know anyone who, A, B, C, D, E, F, very non-threatening. They can say no. I don't take it personally. But also, this is a little thing that I teach in the Earn More program, is create a paragraph. Give your referral sources a paragraph that they can choose to cut and paste or edit to make it really easy for them to refer you. So to combine some of that, if I'm on LinkedIn and I'm looking at Sarah's profile and I see a couple of people that maybe I want Sarah to introduce me to, I can send Sarah an email and first of all say, do you actually know these people on LinkedIn? And if you do, I don't suppose you'd be willing to make an introduction. And here's a little paragraph to make it easier for you. So again, it's about knowing your objectives, having a written plan, delivering value, and making it as easy as you can for people. And you know what? When you're doing all of that, you're demonstrating how you do business and you're accelerating that know, like, trust process.
Right. One of the things I found, and of course, in the beginning of this, we switched to virtual client meetings, as I'm sure many people on this
Right.
call have. But it's so easy, as we've talked about, right? Everybody starts the conversation with, "Hi, how are you doing?" And when you have these existing relationships with your clients, for SKC, it's business owners, they talk to each other, right? And their
Right.
circle of friends tends to be, and their support group tends to be other business owners. So sometimes it's as simple as saying, who did you talk to in the last week that's a business owner that has the same complaints or concerns or issues that you have, and who are you using as your support group? And sometimes that opens their awareness of, oh, I really should
Right.
introduce you to that person, or you guys could get, a lot from each other, that type of thing. And again, everybody wants the best for everybody, I believe, and it's just a matter of sometimes they're just not thinking that these two people should be put together.
Absolutely. And you and Karen talked about this being a time when there's humanity, and how we do business has softened tremendously. And so very often those conversations are starting in difficult places. And the truth is, difficult places are really fertile places for new business and referrals. So I completely agree. The conversation has shifted a little bit, and it's actually made it easier to take that next step of asking.
Right, definitely. So I'm going to pause before we move to our next section, because it's focused more on metrics and measurements and sort of the detail of things. And I just want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions up until this point on what we've talked about so far.
I just wanted to mention something, Donna, that you just touched on, and maybe you could just expand on it a little bit, because it's such a gem that I want this to really be driven home, about what influence is, and about you being in the room without you being in the room. And Sarah, to your point about people talking about you, other business owners discussing you, that's a surefire way to do that. And how do you stay top of mind so that you can be in that position?
Right. We always talk about it at SKC as you want to be a celebrity in your field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, I actually have an entire presentation on the power of influence. And I believe there's a few things. It's getting clear on what you stand for, because if you're not clear on your values, it's the old, if you stand for everything, you fall for anything. So for me, it's getting clear on your values. It's knowing that your personal brand is based on those values, and you have to develop your story. And you have to deliver your story with confidence. And I really believe that confidence is a practice that you build. I think it's not an innate skill. I think it's something that every 2-year-old and 4-year-old has, and then life kind of kicks you in the butt a little bit and you lose some confidence, and it's a matter of building it back up. I also think that confidence is rooted in competence, and that is the cornerstone for building influence. And you take that personal story, that confidence, and you build it into thought leadership, and ultimately it leads to influence. And building influence is absolutely playing a long game, but it's everything we just talked about. It's showing up to be a go-giver. It's looking for ways to collaborate. It's modeling the behavior. And it's showing up, Lorena talked about what organizations are you involved in that you may not be getting anything from. Well, if you're not giving anything to those organizations, you won't be getting anything from those organizations. And that giving, again, allows you to model your values, your confidence, your competence, your thought leadership. And so this is what I've found over the years is when you find the formula, and for me, this has been the formula, it's rinse, lather, repeat. It's keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And I do not believe that there's a magic answer, or, you'll see these 10 secrets too. I don't think there's anything secret about it. I don't think there's anything particularly rocket science about it. But thought leadership and influence is insanely powerful. And if it's the one thing you work towards, it is, as a professional service firm, it is the one thing. I participated in an event last week, and the next day I got a call from the Economic Development Authority because they saw me and they asked me if I could do something. those things start to string together, and then you find yourself, being asked to do things at a level, you just keep upping the game. So this is something I'm very passionate about, and I believe we can all develop it, and this virtual environment makes it in some ways easier to do because you have so much more reach.
See, Donna, your celebrity status is just growing here.
Woohoo!
So we talked about planning, and we talked about writing down things and getting them on paper, and we touched a little bit on metrics, but let's dive into more of sort of analyzing the results and creating a process around business development and marketing. Because I know at SKC that's super important for us to keep going and narrowing our focus into what is the most beneficial for the team and what is the most successful. So it's, in my opinion, critically important, whether you're a one-man shop or you have a full team of salespeople, that you really have to have a plan and a process, something that's repeatable, so that when there's the next generation or the next hire that comes on, there's something that they can walk through and follow as a guide. And so let's throw up a quick poll and get some understanding on how many people are actually using a CRM system or similar software to manage your business development. So some people I know are very happy in Excel. Some people I can accept still have the stack of business cards on the side of their desk, and that's how they choose to manage their business development process. But I think we've got to embrace the technology that's there on this side of things and sort of use that. So Brittany, if you'd share those results, please. All right, nice, good. So we've got some Kool-Aid drinkers on the call. I like it. So Lorena, I'll start with you. I know this is your wheelhouse, and you've customized Zoho for SKC to use as our business development tracking tool. How can a company who might not have a system, or even worse, might not be using it to its full potential, go about putting one in place or really utilizing it to maximize its full potential, getting the bang for the buck, if you would?
Sure. So CRM, it's sort of like, a hated or loved word, and there's definitely a relationship with it. It's just a very fancy acronym for a customer relationship management tool. Now, in the past, it was perceived that a CRM is something you need for business development, not really needed for running the business, and an Excel spreadsheet is fine. Excel spreadsheet does absolutely work. I love the fact that you use the word repeatable, because there are three things that I always about when we're talking about CRMs. And the reason that they're so important is they actually give you responsiveness, repeatability, and reliability. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a system you purchase. It can be a stack of index cards, which one client's actually had at one point. Cards attached, ginormous index card, those like big ones, stapled, and lots of notes, and had a filing cabinet, little numbers for the entire 31 days of the month. That's when they would put for the day of the month that they were going to follow up with the client. It was a system. It worked. Not the system I would have recommended, but it was a system. But what you want to make sure you have before you even get started, it's like everything else that we were talking about, is you want to make sure you start with the end in mind. What kind of system are you trying to do, and why? Are you trying to track where the leads are coming from? Are you tracking, growing your team, and you want to make sure that it's repeatable so that everyone else is doing things the way that were you? Is because you want more responses? Is it because you make sure that you're reaching out to clients you haven't talked to in a while? Or is it because you want to follow up when a client is actually calling you to make sure that you respond within a specific time? Or most importantly, is it because of reliability? Is it because you're doing things one way and then you're doing things completely different on this side for another client that had a similar issue? So if you're looking to scale and you're looking to grow and you're putting market dollars out there and you spend all of this time, you will be able to capture some of that by having those systems in place that you are able to actually track your results. So whether it's a spreadsheet, great. If it's a glorified spreadsheet and that's working, that's fantastic. It's still a start. And you can always grow from there into actual CRM. I'm a big believer that just take a little bit of the time to really invest in your business and create that system. It's going to go a long way. I'm a fellow Earn More alumni from Donna's, and that was one of the things that I remember take to heart was have to always start with end in mind and kind of backtrack a little bit. You're able to actually plan whatever it is you're looking to. And without a system of some kind, it's kind of hard to do.
This is a common theme today. Start with the end in mind.
That's right.
I like it. I like it. So Karen, I know I'm probably getting this timeline wrong, but I think at SKC it's been a little over a year since we started using our CRM system. Is somewhat right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know sort of in the beginning, we didn't really even have a whole business development or marketing team. And so we really sort of built this up very much with your involvement, gratefully. So can you kind of compare and contrast for the audience what your role in the marketing department as a whole, as well as our internal business development team, has been like before and after utilizing the CRM?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I would say that prior to instituting the CRM platform, we use Zoho. It was kind of, yeah, we did have objectives, and we were, kind of moving slowly in the right direction, but we had no way to really track it. But not only did we not have a way to track it, we didn't have a way to unify the efforts of all the people in the group. Now, granted, in the early days, our meetings used to look like, we called it cards on the table. Literally 3 or 4 people would sit together in a room, put business cards on the table, and discuss who it was that we met that week or that, and where we were going with it. That was the extent of it. And, for a very long time that worked. Our business is and continues to be built on referrals. So in the past, there was limited number of people on the team. As we have grown and as results have really shown that our efforts are working, there's more interest in being a part of the team now. And we're up to 12 people. And Donna, this sort of speaks to your point earlier about, making each team member really they are in business development. We all are. We all tell the SKC story. But having a CRM platform now gives us a way to unify the group, to track our activities. Who are we meeting? Where is it going? Or is anyone experiencing a hiccup, or do they need support somewhere? Does anybody else know this person that I met? And it gives us, using the Zoho platform, provides us with these reports that really are now the very basis of our business development meetings and of our efforts. It gives us a place to come together and see very clearly what's happening with the team. From a marketing perspective, it also gives us a place to house all of our campaigns. So all of these wonderful campaigns with objectives, they now have a home. And we can clearly see were leads generated through any one of these specific campaigns that we did. We're working on right now with Lorena is tying our email platform, the Constant Contact, with our CRM, so that very easily and automatically we can just add one in one platform and it'll populate the other, making it super, super effective and very efficient, and has just bolstered our marketing efforts, and really from a business development side is game changer. Really brought the team together.
Absolutely. And there's 2 things from an SKC standpoint that I actually love about this that Karen didn't touch on is, number one, it does provide that history, right? So it gives people coming into the business development team who may be sort of not sure if they want to play in this space, but it gives them the history of here's how we've historically gotten business, and here are the things that we know have worked, and here's where so-and-so's strengths are. So if you're somebody who really likes asking existing clients for referrals, that's where this person has gotten 80% of their new business from. And so it really is, I think, a much better sort of developmental way to bring new people into the business development team. And the second thing that I love about it as managing partner is I can see a pipeline, right? So I have a very clear vision of where these proposals are, where these potential prospects are in the timeline, and that allows me to be ahead of the curve on hiring. So it allows me to say, okay, we're looking really good for the upcoming quarter. I think we have to start meeting people, putting ads out there, that type of thing. And so that sort of breeds out into the entire organization and really helps the entire infrastructure and the whole organization grow and be sort of in sync together.
And not getting that a CRM is not like one and done thing, right? Just you guys are experiencing now, it was set up, it worked really well, and now you've that next level, right? That's plateau, so now you have to enhance it and jet up a little bit more. And that's one of the biggest things that people don't realize is, yes, you may have gotten CRM 10 years ago, but are you utilizing it to its benefit? And are you really growing with the system you actually have?
Right, right. So Donna, as a business owner, your business has many moving parts, as any business really does. And you rely heavily on your team to take care of a lot of different areas. So how has using a CRM system for you made your life easier as a business owner, and then also helped your entire team stay connected?
Yeah, it's funny, as Lorena and Karen were talking, I thought, wow, this is like, it's almost a trip down memory lane. I implemented Zoho in 2012. I went from Outlook to Zoho. And we did it in a manner where, and I recommend, and I imagine Lorena would as well, you have to do it in phases. It can be, it can be a bit overwhelming. So you have to do it in phases so that you can get everyone's buy-in. But I rely on my CRM very much so, and we create behavior plans for each person who's involved in business development, because I can control my behavior if I make X calls, if I attend these amounts of, if I attend events. So the Zoho allows us to track our behavior plans, and our behavior plans, are indicators of what our results will be. So Karen, we have reports as well that, print out and tell me, I could tell you based on how many tours I do, how many offices I'm going to rent, what the metrics are for producing what it is you have to produce. And for us, because we went about it, I guess maybe in a slower than normal fashion, it took us a while to figure out what we had to input to get out what we wanted. And I think that's a little bit of a work in progress as you go along. We certainly use it very heavily to identify and track our referral sources. That's one of the number one things we do is where's our business coming from? Who are our referral sources? So how can I nurture those relationships? On a very simplistic way, one of the ways it helps me and my team is the notes. And I know I have to touch on this because the notes are what allow the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. But even more importantly, if your behavior is to nurture those center of influence relationships, and maybe you haven't called someone in 6 months and you pick up the phone to call Sarah, and you've got a note that Sarah was going to Aruba for a vacation. When you 6 months later say to Sarah, hey, how was that vacation in Aruba? Sarah goes, oh my gosh, she was really paying attention. I've had people say, I can't believe you remember that. And I say, I don't. I have a good CRM system and I take notes. I am not that good. But when you are a professional service company that's looking to accelerate the know, like, trust process, you cannot underestimate the things that should be in those notes. The other way it's made the entire organization run more smoothly, in addition to what Karen and Lorena and yourself, Sarah, have already mentioned, is we are the queens of templates. Everything we do, for the most part, has a template. Onboarding, wind downs, you're interested in this, you're interested in that. So everything has a Zoho template, and that allows my voice to be part of the process when I'm not there. So the templates are phenomenal. And the other thing is, again, very simply coming back to, making sure what you do comes across the finish line is it's how we track activities and how we follow up. I can't remember everything that's on my plate, so I can put the follow up in Zoho, and it allows you to systematize what you're doing. It gives you the metrics you need to be able to make. And I know Sarah and Karen, I'm going to hear a little out of them. But you have to make, in everything you do, you have to be making data-driven decisions. That could be finances. It could be your data analytics. I know you guys are coming out with a great dashboard to help all of us measure that. And I think CRM is where it all comes together, and it helps you to marry all of that. And just like Karen, you said you're connecting Constant Contact and Zoho. For us, again, it's streamlining. If someone fills out a form on my website, it goes directly into Zoho, and from Zoho, it goes directly into Constant Contact. Done. It's all done. And what amazes me is how much these programs improve and grow. And so you need someone like Lorena to constantly be saying, hey, did you know it does this? So it's a very integral part of how we manage both our business, how we get everyone on the team selling. And for us, because we offer, offices and bookkeeping and virtual assistants and consulting, it is how we cross-sell. It's how we cross-sell. It's, we enter the data as we need to so that we can pull it out and do a campaign to our bookkeeping clients who might be interested in something else. So Lorena knows I could be on my soapbox about CRM forever. I believe, forget anything else, you need CRM, and it's really affordable now. There's a free version of Zoho. There's no reason everyone can't be using this amazing software, which integrates to my Outlook email. I can take emails right from my Outlook and put it in my Zoho. It also has helped us to go paperless. Our contracts and everything are now attached to Zoho, and in the cloud, we've got 2 copies. We have no more paper. So I could go on forever. It's a fantastic
commercial
tool.
right here. This is
Honest to
perfect.
God, it's an amazing tool that I think I'm glad that the majority of our audience uses. I would say that those who don't might want to look into it, and those who do want to learn more about it.
Great. I will disclaim none of us has a stake in Zoho and gets any sort of kickback from this. It just happens to be the common one that we seem to use. But
Yeah. And I'll say why. The reason I chose Zoho is because as a user, I can customize it. I don't need a programmer. I mean, I often need someone like Lorena because I don't understand everything, but I can make changes myself, which is not true of all of them.
Right. True. So, ladies,
It's definitely not.
Go ahead, Lorena.
Sorry, it's not a size fits all type of role. Like Zoho might be fantastic for some, and then there's the other ones. So I definitely say, don't get on industry specific ones, and don't focus on the ones that you hear say, because there are good pros and cons for one, and it's really about, again, what you're trying to accomplish, so that you can find one that actually fits your needs. So.
And I just want to make one last comment here too. At the beauty about having a platform that gives you results is that you can share them. And it's something happens when the people in your organization know how it's working, and they see, yes, the new business is happening. Things are like, they want a piece of that. I mean, it's like, you just want to, it creates a buzz. It creates excitement, and excitement creates interest, and interest creates action, and it's all good.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I mean, we covered a lot of the overview of some of these areas, and we could probably dive into each area for an hour in and of itself, but I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, and thank you to our audience for joining us. Again, our past SKC office hours are on our website if you want to take a look if you've missed some of those. If you have ideas or recommendations for topics in the future that you'd like to hear, please reach out to Karen, and she'd be happy to add those to the list of potential topics. So without further ado, I thank you all for joining us. Have a safe and happy Halloween, and we will see you next month.